Howdy, folks. John here with Rent My Home Property Management. Today, I just want to go over with you guys some of the frequently asked questions, common questions we get asked all the time. I figured I'd just drop a quick video to kind of address some of the common things that we get um, as folks interact with our business. So I'll just kind of go down the list here, fire away. If you have any additional questions, feel free to give us a call, shoot us a text. We can kind of work through it. But the most common things we get asked are, how much can I rent my home for? That's a great question. Of course, you want to know. Some folks are evaluating between selling or renting out their home, and they're just kind of weighing their options. So if they go the renting it out route, they want to know, okay, am I going to be able to have some cash flow? Am I going to be able to cover my mortgage? Am I going to be negative cash flow? Maybe I don't want to do that. So that is a common question. Um, the real answer to that, is that it depends. It depends on the market, current market conditions. There's a lot that goes into that, but you have to look at what the market's doing. Look at comparable properties. If there's a lot of competition for homes like yours at a similar price point, you kind of have to base your property off of that to a large extent. Now, an issue that a lot of folks are running into today and these days is that they have a mortgage to pay, of course, and maybe they bought their home 1 to 2 years ago. They have an interest rate that's not too great, and so they quote unquote need a certain rental rate. The problem you run into though is that you have to turn to the market and see what the market's going to offer you. If 10 homes up the street are renting for 1,800, and maybe yours is just like theirs, but your mortgage is 2,400, you're probably going to be negative on that cash flow there, because you got to be competitive. You can't overprice your property or it's going to sit vacant. Then you're going to have to be paying that mortgage payment, and just kind of waiting. You'll probably end up doing a price drop anyways. That's just my 2 cents on that. Of course, you want to screen and qualify the tenants. You don't want to just put anyone in there who's going to sign a lease. You may be willing to, you may be able to find someone who could sign a lease and say, hey, yeah, I'll pay you 2,400, but are they qualified? Are they, going to take care of your property? That's another question. Um, how much do you charge for your management services? We are a flat rate service, and we quote our services on a per property basis. So we'll give you a flat fee and say, hey, we can manage your property for this much per month. Rather than a percentage, we'll do a dollar amount. And it really depends on our relationship with the owner, the particular property that we're looking at, the location, the quality of the property, the condition. A number of factors go into it, but we keep it pretty affordable, um, and it is a flat rate. So request a quote if you'd like to know how much we can manage your property for. How long will it take to rent my property? In most cases, it's pretty easy to get it rented within 30 days. Usually it's well under that. It really depends on what you price it at. If you overprice it, and we'll give you a recommendation, then it might sit vacant for a while and you might have to come down anyways. But our company record is getting a property rented in less than 24 hours, and we've done that multiple times. And so there's there's qualified tenants out there, and they're ready to rent a property, and we'll screen them pretty quickly. But are we in the right price point? Are we listening to the market? That's really the better question. So yes, there's demand. Yes, we'll get your property rented quickly, but you have to price it appropriately. How long are your lease terms? We'll do 12-month leases, unless the owner or the prospective tenant requests something different. But that's the default, is 12 months. Sometimes we'll get a tenant that says, hey, can you do 2 years or can you do 6 months? And in those cases, we'll always ask the owner client, are you okay with this? The tenant wants to do this. Something to consider on that, though, is if you're doing a shorter lease period, you might have more turnover, because if they move out within 6 months rather than a year, you're going to have to maybe get it cleaned again, maybe do some touch up paint and things like that to get the property ready for the next tenant. So your turnover expenses might be a little bit higher or more frequent if you do a shorter lease. So sometimes I advise against that. But on the flip side, sometimes you're able to charge a little bit more in rent if you're offering a shorter lease term and you're being a little bit more flexible. How do you handle evictions? Very common question, especially for first-time landlords. Um, Really, what you want to do is don't get yourself in that situation in the first place. That's why we place so much emphasis on the front end on screening and qualifying your tenants. Um, if you do a good job on the front end, do your due diligence, and properly screen a tenant, you likely will never have to run into that issue of an eviction. However, if you do run into it, there's a process you have to follow. Take it to the courts, submit the appropriate paperwork, and it's going to take 60 to 90 days maybe to get those folks out of there and get your property back. But really, you shouldn't run into that issue if you're doing a good job screening your tenants. What areas do you cover? We're currently just managing properties in Clarksville, Tennessee. Work orders, that is a good question. Of course, you as a property owner, you're responsible for maintenance on your property, unless, of course, it is, tenant cause or tenant negligence. Um, our repair authorization limit is set, and so anything under that authorization limit, we're just going to go ahead and take care of. And of course, we're letting you know either way if it's under that bar. For larger repairs, we're going to maybe get multiple quotes or talk to you and come up with a plan on what we want to do. We're not just going to do some massive, large repair on your property without talking to you first, getting multiple quotes if necessary. But for minor things, we're still keeping you in the loop. We're just going to basically take care of it. And we manage our own rental properties right alongside yours. And we're using the same vendors, the same process for our properties that we use for yours. And so we know, first of all, we've got really good relationships with a lot of local vendors that are affordable, reliable, trustworthy, honest, on time, and all the above. And so we've got those relationships in place. We know, what certain repairs cost or should cost. And so if someone's gonna, try to overcharge us or something like that, we're gonna give them pushback and we're gonna get multiple quotes or maybe go with someone else, just like we do for our own property. So we think that's really important that we manage our properties alongside yours. We're treating your property just like we would ours, and I'm not going to let someone get one up on us or your property or mine for repairs and things like that. And so we do have a $250 repair reserve that we'll hold back from the first month's rent. That's used for like minor repairs and stuff, and it gets reimbursed from rent collected if it is used. But we do hold that back. That's a repair reserve. I do also recommend that you, as a property owner, have some money set aside for bigger ticket items. If your HVAC goes out, water heater goes out, something like that, it's not a matter of if it's going to happen. Like, things like that do happen, even on newer homes. And so don't get caught off guard. Have some money set aside in a separate account, maybe, or a savings account that you could address those kinds of bigger ticket items. How often do you check on the property? By default, we're going to do a physical walkthrough of the interior and exterior of your property at a minimum one time per year, but we'll do up to four times if the owner requests. Um, Anything more than four times, it's just a bit excessive, and we don't want to disturb the tenant as well. We want to give them a good place to live, but most of our owners are good with one walkthrough per year, and we found that that's pretty sufficient. But if you want more, just let us know. Just ask. We'll be happy to work with you on that. We like to do that maybe 3 to 4 months prior to the end of the lease, and so that enables us to give the owners a recommendation as far as, are the tenants taking care of the property. Um, Basically, yeah, we're determining if the tenants are taking care of the property so that we can then, prior to the end of the lease, give the owner a recommendation on a lease renewal, a non-renewal. Maybe you're increasing rents a little bit, maybe you're leaving them the same, but that's kind of the timeline, is check on the property, touch bases with the owner. Hey, do you want to renew or not? Because they're taking great care of it, or not, and then execute on that plan. How do you receive your rent? We do have direct deposit, and you have an owner portal as well, where you can check out your owner statements, invoices, receipts, things like that, and your account balance. We'll automatically distribute rent to you every single month via direct deposit. There's no additional costs or anything like that. No administrative fees for having your owner portal. Again, you could access that 24/7 on demand as you see fit. Also, on that note, our tenants also do have a tenant portal where they could submit work orders and pay rent as well. No charge to them either on that. Can you sell your rental property? Yes, of course you can. You're not obligated to use our company either. I would say though that it's easier to sell a property when it's vacant because you open your pool of buyers up to maybe someone who wants to occupy the property. So someone who's going to use it as a primary residence. If you got a lease in place and you're trying to sell 6 months before the lease is up, you're basically limiting yourself to only investor buyers. And there is a market for that, but it's just smaller than the regular pool of buyers who may want to occupy the home. So just that's something to consider. Um, it's also easier to kind of sell a vacant property because then you're not trying to have to coordinate showings with the tenants and kind of intrude on their space because while they're living there, while they have a lease in place, you do want to respect that and give them a nice place to live. Who's responsible for utilities? Um, as soon as the tenant's lease starts, they'll have to roll utilities into their name, um, and they're going to take over lawn maintenance as well. But while the property is vacant, and don't forget, even this includes after you move out, you're responsible for utilities and lawn care, and that's in between tenants as well. Short-term rentals, I've managed them in the past. Don't mess with it now. I don't like short-term rentals. I don't own any short-term rentals. Um, if you do own short-term rentals or you do manage them, God bless you. That's not for me. Section 8 properties. We currently don't manage Section 8 properties. Don't manage furnished rentals either. Yeah, that's a pretty good. Those are a lot of the frequently asked questions. Again, I might do another update, but that's kind of like a lot of them. But if you have any additional questions, check us out at TennesseeManager.com. Shoot us a text, and we're happy to go over it with you. But yeah, thanks for checking in, and I'll see you guys soon.